Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Episode 10 of the Rainmakers Runway, captained by yours truly, Byron, the model maniac, with my wonderful co-host and co-pilot sitting alongside me, heading to LAX, Draft Master Flex, aka Mr. Joel. How the hell are you?
I'm good. And we had a brief moment before we got on here to talk about the course and the US Open and how excited we are for the week. And that's my biggest thing. One thing I keep thinking about leading up to this tournament is how we get this unique course of LA Country Club that's so mysterious. And I'll tell you what, people online and the writers and TV, they're certainly selling it well. So if it's disappointing, if it's not a cool course, it's going to be the biggest letdown ever because we're all now just looking forward to this super wild, exotic, unique course that's going to be super challenging for these guys this week.
Yeah, look, the expectations are sky high. You know, they're flying at altitude with us alongside. Like the third co-pilot is the expectations this week. You know, it's cruising at a mile high, and it's going to be great. We're going to hope for the best. You know, we're not going to expect anything bad to happen. I think the course seems to be just fine from what I've heard. It seems like it's a little damp still, not super dry and baked out as it could be, but it is still a Monday. You know, I think they lay off the hose there for the next 2 days. We could see the course start getting a little frisky by the time the weekend rolls around. So
before we dive into Rainmaker stuff,
yes,
I think there is a world where, like, if you're not playing U.S. Open conditions and you're just playing this course, and it's a little soft, you can get some really low scores here, probably, right? This doesn't seem like it's like naturally the most challenging track. Now, obviously, they're going to make it more challenging by going out the rough, lengthening some of the holes, doing everything they can. Is there a world where we could all be surprised and this U.S. Open could be, even the winner could be 20 under?
So I just got done with my stat buffet, and I do a fortune cookie filter at the end, and I pick all the different categories, and I chose medium course scoring as my filter. Instead of easy, medium, or hard, I went medium, which is 15 to -10 for the top 5 guys. They average that kind of score. So I think, just listening to Cam Smith's presser, he said, I think there's some birdies out there. If you can avoid the big numbers, there's going to be guys that can make some birdies and shoot 66s, just 466s. I have no idea, Joel, but I can definitely see a world where it gets to 12 under. There's only 2 par 5s, but I think there's a few wedges, about 6 holes that you've got a wedge in your hand. So if you birdie about a third of those and then maybe sneak another wedge or par 5 in there or a long putt on another hole, there's 4 birdies for you right there. So I don't know. What do you think? I think it could definitely get there. I don't think we see it level par. I think we definitely see -5 or much higher than that.
Yeah, the two things I'm thinking is I also find it hard for someone to have one of those days that, like, they go 9 under. Like, we've seen it some tournaments, but that's probably not going to happen. So you're probably going to be limited to, like, at best a 6 under if someone has a lights out day. But the counter to that is it does seem like there's going to be a few blowups. I think this rough is going to be really tough. And I think some guys are going to have some holes where they're going to struggle, probably double or 2 somewhere along the way. Yeah. So it's going to take someone to really have a week where they really go 15 under or something like that to just be hitting basically every fairway, just not missing, and just have be absolutely lights out with their irons. And then on top of that, make a few putts. Yeah, it's possible, but it just feels like you have one off day, and like that could be a 77, and then that just derails everything. So we'll see.
It's interesting, dude. It really is interesting because I do think it's also one of those courses where I've got like a Justin. I mean, he's not a rainmaker, but I've got a Justin Rose outright this week because I think he's still got a shot at it, even though he's not the longest off the tee. I think with accuracy, you can hit those runways. You can, kind of the rainmaker runway of the runway fairways, hit that sloot and just get that hard part of the fairway going and roll your ball all the way to where it needs to be because that's how this course was designed. It's kind of like, I know Ron Klaas, aka PGA Splits on Twitter, Splitzer101, does a thing where he uses PGA championships and US Opens to kind of give strokes gained total. I'm going to bring this up with him on the show on Wednesday. I disagree because I feel like all 4 majors are in play this week. This feels Augusta-y. It feels like a US Open with thick rough, and it also feels hard and fast like a Open out in the British Open. Like like St. Andrews-ish kind of. It gives me some vibes, crusty. If it gets a little out there, it seems linksy too at the same time. So there's a lot of comparisons you can make with this golf course. And I think it's really going to be fascinating to see how we go about it.
It's definitely going to be a fascinating week because, like we were kind of saying, the range of outcomes I've never seen so wide heading into. Like usually, okay, it's an easy course, or this week you have to succeed. We barely know the course. We really don't know what's going to take to succeed here. Guys can be blowing up one day and be shooting way high scores. It can be a lot easier than we think. So the range of outcomes are so wide, and for a U.S. Open, which traditionally is really, they try to make really difficult conditions. My expectations are just anything can happen.
Yes, I agree, dude. So it's going to be lots of fun. And speaking about having lots of fun, if you are looking to get on board with rotoballer.com, use code Maniac for 10% off. Myself actually got on a bit of a tear last week. I hit 6 out of my 7 placements, all that plus money, and I hit all 3 of my matchups. So I went and turned my $100 from breaking 100 into $90. That included the loss that I had from all my outrights and the farewell fiver. So it was a good week for me last week on the placement sides. I've edited my model up a little bit, changed some things up. I've had 2 big weeks already since doing that. So things are looking up for your boy. So I can actually tell people to come over and check out. Breaking 100 is a free article anyway. But if you want to get on the premium side of things, I got my showdown model that was crushing last week as well. It was just amazing. You can get that in the premium Discord, and it's available to you on the website. So there's all of that going on. Spencer's stuff, Tee Off Sports, is amazing. He's always crushing. He had one of his worst weeks last week. He lost 1.5 units. Like, that's just what he does. It's just like when he's having a bad day, he loses 1.5 units. Like that's a normal day for a normal gambler. So he's amazing. Check his stuff out. And then Joe Nicety's obviously got all his jazz out there too. At Joe Nicety on Twitter. Go follow him too. He's an amazing rider and a fantastic DFS player. So that's what's cooking over at Rotoballer. Use code Maniac for 10% off. Let's dive into it, Joel. We've got a fun slate of golf ahead. We've got what? The tournament is a major. So we've got the premium package, the deluxe situation going on. So you are getting the highest payouts that you will find this week in the contest. I noticed that there's some interesting things going on because they've got that funny rewards program thingy going on, the scramble that's available out there. If you do certain challenges, you can get certain rewards in DK cash and DK crowns and things like that. I've landed up selling a whole bunch of Jason Days because they're promoting to purchase Jason Day. So his price has gone up through the roof, and I've been a little overexposed, if I'm being honest with you. So it was good to see that I actually sold some Jason Days for profit today. So it's good. I'm like flying high. I'm cruising. So we can discuss all of that. Anything about this contest that you want to discuss before we dive into the names?
So there's just 2 things I do believe there's a different strategy for a major like this than there is for a regular tournament. I think you can pick a little bit more risk in a medium tier guy to have a big week at a normal week-to-week tournament. At a major, I'm going to be less inclined to take a swing at a Cam Davis right here than I would, I really want, especially in Rainmakers when you can play an optimal lineup, right? Yeah. You're not restricted by salary. So there's a bigger heightened factor in ownership. Now, it won't be as big of a problem here because there's probably 15 to 20 guys that are within, striking distance of being that a tier 1 and 2 that you can play. So, if you're going to try and play Rory, Rahm, Scheffler, the top 5, then yeah, you got to find a way to get the low tiers or find a way to just get different. But I think you can build lineups with, sprinkling in maybe guys like Jason Day and Hideki Matsuyama with your Schefflers and maybe your Max Homas and things like that. And be unique enough to compete this week in Rainmakers.
Yeah, I definitely agree there, dude, because, but the thing is, I think the harder it gets, the easier the cream rises to the top. And if it plays a little easier, we see a bit more birdies. When the more birdies there are, the more volatility there is in a leaderboard. That's just how it goes. So, but I don't know. I think probably if you're still thinking it's going to be a major, I think we're going to see some top tier names sitting at the top of the leaderboard by the time we get the end of Sunday. So let's cruise off to LAX. Let's find ourselves some chicken or beef. I want to mention though, as we've discussed many, many times, And there is some weird things about this week because the price that you see here, the average cost of a card is $12.31 this week, and it was $11.48. So it has gone up by 82 cents per card. But now what I've noticed is the average price of the lowest cards has gone up by about a 75 cents to 80 cents because everyone's using those cheapies to burn and craft. So there's that going on.
Well, hold on. Didn't you say this week you had a pretty negative experience with burning?
Oh my God, dude. So yeah, the burning and crafting, I'll just jump into that before we get going. Yeah. Do not, and I repeat, do not burn and craft using the inactive group 3 and 4 packs. Like the recipe for that is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for a loss of money because you're paying $10 for the rare token, and then you got to burn your 2 guys that are inactive to get your best guy is a Jason Day, I think, that's in there. And then it immediately drops to like $14 for the next best guy. So like you might as well just sell those guys and buy who you want in that case, because it's just instantly losing your money. I thought it would be a good deal. I don't know why I clicked the buttons. I should put the clown wig on just for doing that. But I instantly remembered that you got to be able to do the generic one where you burn 2 guys that are just random dudes and just hope for the best outcome, because the range of outcomes is better there then.
I know the game is new, and I'm not saying this to be negative. I'm just saying this as like a learning experience for next year for DraftKings. There really should, I found with playing Rainmakers, I did a lot of learning on the fly. I made a lot of mistakes early trying things and realizing that was a mistake and then fixing it. And I feel like especially for people who are new, you should be more well equipped to understand what you're doing and then understand if you want to do that or not, and not feel like you have to learn and make mistakes in the fly to figure out what it is. And crafting and burning was one for me too, where I didn't really know what it was. I tried it. For me, it was low stakes. I didn't buy the token. I just did it early when you could just take your starter cards and do it with them. But my point being, there's more they can do instructionally to make everyone more equipped to make more educated decisions on how they manage the roster.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and I think we're having learning moments, and I think they are too. So hopefully they're listening to us. I know the Twitter account is very active on our podcasts and my article I wrote about it. So it is nice that they are listening to some degree. I know Jason Roslin is a big middleman between all of that stuff, and he is pleading and begging for certain things to come across, like not having Jordan Spieth, Justin Rose, and the gang, Ricky Fowler. Like Jordan Spieth and Ricky Fowler are 2 really popular golfers that would be really fun to have as a Rainmaker card. I think general people would just enjoy having that card in their profile or their portfolio, and it's not available for some reason. So that sucks. And then burning a card and getting a Richard Johnson, which is a active card, and he's played twice in 2 normal events this year. It's just like dumb stuff like that that's frustrating. So hopefully they can figure that out. I think they have to figure out the player pool. Make sure that you just include the top guys and then leave out those crappy dudes. I don't know. How's he even, if you don't have a certain exemption status, you shouldn't be able to get a Rainmaker card, I don't think, because it just messes up the pool. If you're inside the top 125, I think then bang, you're in. Once you're out, if you slip out, that's fine, whatever. But you don't start with guys that are outside the 125.
I agree. There's certain guys that there's actually too many guys that when you get their card, you're kind of like, I almost would never use this card. You can't even sell them, right? Like 25 cents, no one's going to buy it. So it's like, if nobody wants it, if you can't even sell it for 25 cents, I understand that if they're in the PGA Tour, then they're eligible to be involved. I get that. But there's some guys that we could probably just do without. Clean this up a little bit, right? I think you said make parameters where if you're not within the top 150 of the official world golf rankings, you just can't be eligible for a pack or for a prize or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And I think the prizes and the packs is what's the biggest issue, is ripping these guys and just getting duds sucks. If they out in flux and flowing through the market where you can make a decision if you want to buy it or not, that's fine. But those guys should not be eligible to be prize packs or anything like that. That's also maybe a good idea too. So we'll benchmark that at 14:30 in the podcast. We just came up with a genius idea. It's going to change the landscape of Rainmakers. So we'll get going at that, because we got to talk about some guys, Joel. And like you mentioned, it's the US Open. The cream is going to rise to the top. And there's guys that we can sell at a high price right now because there's the market's hot. The market's hot and it's cooking, but we got to figure out who the guys are we keeping and who the guys are that we selling. So right off the top, we've got Scotty Scheffler actually separating himself from Jon Rahm quite drastically this week. We've seen them pretty much within $10 of each other, and Jon Rahm's actually not played so hot. Now he's coming in at like $160 versus the $187 we saw at the PGA Championship, and Scotty Scheffler's kind of back to the same price that we saw 4 weeks ago at the PGA Championship. So I'm assuming I know which way you're rolling with. If you were to pick one, are you rolling with both? How are you doing the top there with those two guys?
Right now, listen, both amazing. I would even say, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I saw somewhere that I think Rahm does have a bit of a better track record in California in some of these tracks, and not this course specifically, but just in general in some of these California tracks. But I'm still going with Scheffler right now. The way he's playing is just so lights out and out of this world. And I think one of the factors that, like, the argument can be made for Rahm maybe in DFS because the ownership will be higher in Scheffler. In this, it doesn't matter because it's going to be likely the same. If you have the card, you're going to play it. So they're going to be up there the same. I think Scheffler is just playing the best golf in the world, so I'll start with him.
Yeah, I agree too. I bought some Rahms at the Canadian Open for I bought one for $150, hoping I could flip it quickly, and it's sitting at like 155. I'm losing that $15 on that fee. You know, I'm not quite making my money back like I thought he was going to pop, but maybe we wait a little bit longer. People will still look. They'll want a Rahm because I think he's the clear-cut second favorite golfer in this field without Brooks, you know, as a rainmaker. Rory, just a dud, you know, $110 going into RBC, and then boom, you know, just couldn't quite get it done. There's one thing I have done right this year, and it's just not involved myself in any Rory McIlroy cards. I think I've done fine there. You know, like it's not like he's hurt you ever. He's actually been really disappointing.
You know what's interesting about Rory, and that's a good time to bring up. The sentiment that he's been disappointing, I agree with. Like, he has been. Like, he's just really not really.
Yeah.
But the results are still there, right? He's still getting top 10. He's still finishing well. Like, the thing with Roy, and it's like so consistent with him, is like he's the king of like a round 2, 8 under. Yeah. And then like never actually staying in the leaderboard on Sunday. Like he's just hangs around and like, but like at no point where you're ever like, oh, Rory's gonna win this tournament. You know, he just kind of never gets all the way to the top. And so he does play like he obviously is very talented. He does play good enough to compete and stays involved, and like playing Rory and Rainmakers actually is my point I'm going to make makes sense because he still gets you that 9th place, which if he's your 5th card is useful, right? And that will get scoring will work. So I'm fine with Rory. Like, the thing you got to think about with Rory is you still have to pay for him, which is, you know, a pretty hefty price. And can you find, you know, if you're on a budget, can you find that 8th or 9th place from someone a little cheaper? Probably. You could find someone comparable at half the price. If you're not on a budget, he's still pretty safe to be a guy that could be winning money in a line.
I totally agree with you. And that's a very interesting way to look at it because a budget versus a full-on free-for-all of portfolio rostering is two different routes that people take, you know. So I would probably assume that I would be in the budget, you know, I don't really have every single golfer available in the week, you know. So I have certain guys that I play, and there's certain guys I just fade the whole season. So Rory's been one of those guys that I'd rather bet. I'd rather have 2 Tyrrell Hattons, 2 Jason Days instead of 1 Rory kind of situation. I'm trying to get my value elsewhere by bouncing off of him. But if you are looking to really just optimize your portfolio, you got to have him in there because, like you said, the results are solid, but you know, compared to Rahm and Scotty, not so hot, especially without the win this week, you know, or this year. So, interesting stuff there. Thanks for that. That was some good information there on Rory. I didn't really think about all of that. Just thought he sucked, you know, but I've just been fading him the whole year anyway. So let's jump on to Xander Schauffele and Victor Hovland, Patrick Cantley down here in the $82 range, $80. 3 guys sitting in a very similar salary range. 3 guys that are playing solid golf. 3 guys that are trending in the right direction. Chicken, beef, or lobster, yeah, Joel. We've got some fun decisions to make.
Wait, I'm sorry. The 3 are Xander, Hovland, and Cantlay?
Yeah.
So the first, they're all interesting. These are all three very interesting plays for all different reasons, right? So, the first thing with Xander is Xander tends to play up in majors, and he's a California guy, which he probably means I do value familiarity. So if I know these guys are California guys, or if there's rumors that they've played here in the past, I give them a little bit of a bump because I just think these are going to be confusing greens, and guys who are really playing this for the first time, I think, are going to find them more difficult than guys who have a little bit of experience on them. So I feel like Xander, and I don't know how many times Xander's played it, but I assume he's probably played more because he's from the area. He's closer. And he does tend to play up in majors. Is this the best form we've seen Xander in? No, but it's not terrible either. I mean, he's playing, good enough. So I don't have Xander as my fourth highest ranked player in terms of what he is price-wise. So I think from a player per dollar, I don't love him here, but I don't think I'm not against Xander. I'm totally fine with people who like him and want to play.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, they were pushing $100 just not so long ago, or pretty much Xander and Canty, and now they're both sitting at 80. So the price has definitely gone down for them too. But I do think Xander's long irons are going to be so clutch around this golf course. There's just going to be so much that suits his game. Yeah, I think his drive is not necessarily the straightest in the world, but I think a course like this can kind of let him just get away with a few small misses that he has. And, like you said, that major track record is amazing on Xander's behalf. So a lot to like from him. If I were to pick, sure, dude, I don't know what to think of Hovland going into this week, man, because it's just like the stars are aligning. That it makes too much sense. He's been crushing it in the last three majors. Hasn't won one yet. I don't know, Joel. Is it going to all just come crashing down on a tight, crispy LACC, or is he going to win this thing? So yeah. Thoughts on Victor?
Hovland is the player I think I'm most torn about going into this tournament for a multitude of reasons. One, like you said, he's been playing great all year. He's been even playing up into majors also. He's been playing really well in the big ones. Now, the counter. The other good thing is he's starting to figure out his around the green woes, where he was so bad, he's looking better. It looks like he's figured something out. And we've always said, once he figures that out, he's going to be a problem. And look what happened. Right now, he seems to be a problem.
Yeah.
Now, the counter. And this is not truly very sheer logic, but everyone thinks this way. No one likes playing someone right after they win, right? There's just he came off a win, and typically there's a little bit of a win hangover. So are we counting that win hangover from the Memorial that's going to show up here at a major now? Two, even though he showed remarkable improvement in his around the ring game, this is a whole nother beast, right? This is a whole different challenge than just, your typical PGA course. And is he going to be able to show, is that improvement going to carry over to this course?
It's two very good questions. I think question one about the hangover is it's not a Jason Day situation where he won the week before. It was 2 weeks ago. He's had a week to drink some water, get some hydration going, deal with all of that stuff. But still, at the same time, the next start is still his first since the win, which is always going to be kind of weird. Not many people just go back to back, especially with the next tournament being a major. But, he's been playing so well in these damn majors, man. So it's just so interesting. And then you said the around the green play at this venue seems a little crispy and tight-lied, which I think is why I'm getting a vibe from St. Andrews, where he still placed fine. He was in that final group with Rory, kind of sucked it up a little bit in the final round, but played good golf. And the thing about him, Joel, is this ball striking that he's doing right now, it's kind of second to Scotty at the moment, in a way, because it's not the same, but it nullifies that around the green play. If he's going to just be pounding fairways and greens this week, whatever. If he has one or two blunders around the green, it's not going to be that often. It's not I don't think he's going to be like Cam Smith, where he's going to have to rely on it a lot this week kind of thing if he's had a bad drive and scrambling. I think he's going to be in control of his golf ball for the most part, which I think has helped him a lot in the previous majors. So
if he is relying on his around the green game, he's not going to win anywhere, right? If he's banging greens, then that's his strength, that's his sweet spot. I will add one more thing. about Victor here because I just thought of it. And because St. Andrews reminded me, he does have a tendency to kind of, as I like Victor, I'm rooting for him, and I really want him to do well. He does have a tendency to choke down the stretch. He doesn't play great, and if you want to point to the Memorial, he didn't really go out and win the Memorial. The other guys kind of lost it, and he just happened to have the score posted that enabled him to win. It wasn't like he was out there on Sunday, roaring up the leaderboard to win. He just the other guys blew it, and he just happened to be there. So when all the pressure's on at the U.S. Open, and if he is there, I do have concerns about his ability to maintain at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday.
If you think about, though, the PGA Championship, man, he was so balls to the wall, man, the whole way with Brooks. He wasn't backing down. He was going with him toe-to-toe. At one point, it seemed like he was going to maybe win the damn thing. And then, the 16th hole, whatever. Like, is that a choke? Is that just like a really small margin shot that if you lay up, you're not necessarily going to win the tournament? I think he was behind anyway at that point. He probably had to go for the shot. You can make up all those arguments however you want. But he did hang, Joel, for at least, 69 and a half holes, So it's interesting because I've got a slot for a 20-1 for like a 7, like a Victor Hovland outright left in my ammo tank, and I think I'm going to pull the trigger on him, man. I can't, I think if you think of Xander, Patrick, or Victor, who's going to win this week? I want to say Victor.
You said
all three of them. If I say who's going to win this week, it's Victor out of those three. Who's going to most likely finish top 5? Xander or Cantley kind of thing, right? So
there. I think my pick, if I had to pick one right now, I would pick Patrick
to win it.
If I had to pick of those three, I would pick Patrick because he checks the box of another California guy who's got experience on this course. Everyone talks about the contours of the green and how challenging the putting will be. If there's one person I have confidence putting on a difficult green where he already has experience on the course, it'd be Cantley. I feel like so if the ball striking is there this week, I think he'll be good putting and around the green. I think Cantley checks the most boxes for me.
Yeah, and he's playing in California on bent grass greens, which is his best surface, right? And it's not POA that you typically find in California, which is a very interesting nuance to this golf course, which I think really puts it in Cantley's favor. And, as an avid owner of Patrick Cantley, I'm very excited for that. So we'll be seeing how that goes. Interesting stuff. Nonetheless, hopefully we helped you make a certain decision on those three without me saying all three of them to win the damn thing in a fumble of words there. So Jason Day, he's part of that 4-pack of people that if you have all 4 of them, you can win $75. You get a $75 reward as a rare card holder. And his price has just shot through the roof. I mean, it's gone up $20. Thank God. Because I had far too much of Jason Day. And now I've sold at least 2 or 3 of them already. And I'm looking to keep selling because I bought too many of him. And I'm very concerned about his injury. So any concerns with him? And then Tony Finau is just playing horrendous golf right now. He just doesn't know what's up and what's down. And then Colin Morikawa is someone that's really peculiar to me because it's been 3 or 4 tournaments that I think since the RBC Heritage, he hasn't gained more than a stroke off the tee. And typically, if you take a look at his track record prior to that, he's just been on average, like half a stroke per round, 0.75. Like he's been super consistent with distance as well. And it's just kind of, it almost makes sense that he's got these back spasms because you see his distance has been going down and his accuracy has kind of been okay. Like he hasn't been gaining as much off the tee, although the irons was looking to be one of the best iron rounds or weeks of his season. So it's an interesting situation. And I think he can maybe get away with off the tee being not the best year, but also Colin Morikawa is like second thing is being hyper accurate off the tee. So just something I noticed. Same with John Rahm since the Mexican Open. The short game has just not been existent. So there's some guys, certain parts of their games are deficient, Joel. What are you thinking in this range here? We've got Tyrrell, J-Day, Tony Finau, Colin Morikawa.
So I'm with you. I'm not playing Finau. Finau's out for me until I see some improvement. Day has risk because of the injury, but I think Day also has upside. I think we've seen Day play some great golf this year.
In California.
Especially in California. And, I think his game kind of suits this course. Like the things that you want to look for, he's going to be if he's playing well, he's great off the tee.
Yeah.
He's creative around the greens. He makes putts. So I think Jake Day makes sense, but he's not safe. I think there's a world where he could miss the cut. So, he's an upside play. I think Hatton of the four is playing the best golf. He's the safest. He's probably the one I prefer of the four. But Colin Morikawa, I want to touch on. He's not playing like the best Colin Morikawa golf. He's not in his best form. But again, another one of those guys that probably has some exposure to this course. He's more of a local guy. And it does feel like one of those like Colin Morikawa weeks where it's like the week where no one really is overly thinking about him. He's not in his best form. He comes up and plays his best golf and makes a mark. So I'm playing Morikawa from a standpoint of like there's upside. He could have a great week, but like I'm not going to be overexposed. I don't want too much of him because I'm probably leaning toward him not having a great week. But I do think there's a world where things come together and he has a great upside week. So small exposure.
Yeah. Colin is one of these weird dudes like we discussed, I think, for the PGA, where his short game, it's a totally different beast when it comes to majors. He did it again at the PGA Championship. He gained around the greens and putting, or at least combined was a net plus, compared to what we typically see week in, week out on the PGA Tour, where he's losing 1.5, 2 strokes to the field, So that can change the whole dynamic. And he just nuts up on the greens. He just makes putts. When he won the British Open, he putted all those freaking putts in. I think he gained a crap ton of strokes putting. So the same at the PGA when he won at Harding Park. So he can do it in the majors. It just needs to happen. We saw a bit of it at the Century Tournament of Champions where the putter fired up a little bit, and it was starting to cook again at Memorial, and then we had the niggly back. So it's a kind of interesting situation where we can, if you're willing to just ignore the fact that he might have back spasms again, then we got an A-plus golfer for a golf course that suits him perfectly. So, yeah, I'm all in. I like Colin. I'm contemplating betting him as well. I think there's like a 38-1 out there right now, which is like a really nice number for Colin.
I think that's my favorite play on Colin. If I had to choose one way to play Colin this week, it's like take him on an outright, take him on a 38-1, and then probably fade him in Rainmakers and DFS.
Yeah, I think so too, because the thing is, now's the time to sell him in a major, kind of just get rid of him at a high price if you're going to go that route. So, yeah, I agree. Tony Finau, wow. I don't know. I need to get rid of some more of his cards because he's just not doing anything, but it's like at half the price is what we were getting him for going into Mexico. Max Homa, his price also, Joel, hasn't quite bounced back the way we were hoping. It kind of has gone down since the RBC even. Maybe it's bounced back a little bit this week to about the same. But I was expecting people going into the US Open in our LACC to kind of dive onto Max Homa at this kind of price. He's like 22-1 on the betting market. So still short. I don't know if they're super overexposed because of all the futures on him from a long time ago. But what do you think about Max this week? I think he's a topic on his own right now.
Love him. Max. And I think I'm probably overweighing this, but I mean, if you're reading things online, I think he's a member here. So talk about guys who are going to have exposure to the course and know how it wheels. He's probably played it more than anyone. And not only that, he was playing unbelievable golf to start the season. He struggled a little bit, plateaued, and now he's starting to play well again. And what better timing than heading back home to California where he loves to play, and of course he's familiar and on the upward trajectory. This seems like a perfect spot for him. I think he's a buy for sure.
I can get behind that because I think maybe I tweeted at someone and said major greater than LA vibes, like the major poor performances we've seen from him in the past is going to be more significant than playing in home. You seem to think it's the other way around. I can see both, but I don't know, man. I don't know about Max. I think he's a wild card kind of a situation where he's not going to be super popular. So we'll see what he can get up to. I freaking hope he does well so we can get that price up again and get rid of a few of his cards because I'm sitting in purgatory with his price right now as well, which is a bit of a disaster. So yeah, so you're in on Max. Matt Fitzpatrick, was saying today that he had his neck flare up a little bit on Friday.
That's certainly concerning. Max had a weird season. The injuries you can tell are there because of his inconsistency, whereas last year he was really consistent. He was just playing great every week. Yeah. This year he shows flashes where he's had weeks where he's played great golf, but then he's had weeks where he was kind of a disaster. And it's like 2 different people we're watching. So there's a lot of risk that goes with playing Matt. I do think there's upside. I think we've seen him have those weeks this year where he's been really good, and I think he's certainly capable this week. But I also see the risks, and I might have some exposure to him because of his upside, but I'm not going to be overweight.
I agree. It's weird, but he's priced so nicely, at 43.50. I don't think that's super overspendy for Matt Fitzpatrick, especially going into these tough run of courses that we'll be seeing at the Travelers and this week. So we'll see what happens there. Sungjae, I'm out on Sungjae going into a major. I like him in regular PGA Tour events. I'm not that big of a fan of him in a major. The same, I don't know. We've got some fun names to discuss here. So anything about Sungjae or Hideki before we jump into the next bunch of dudes?
I'm out on Sungjae too. He's also not going to major. He's also just not playing right now.
He's not.
So until we see more from him, I'm gonna be out on him. Hideki, I could consider. I think his long iron game might make sense here, but there's some risk too. He's scrambling. There's some risk. I'm almost kind of neutral. I would prefer guys like Homa, I think, and if I would rather spend up a little bit more, but I'm okay with it. I would almost say I'm more neutral.
Yeah. And we're kind of getting into the range now where you're buying guys for the long term and not just for this tournament, because that boat's kind of sailed, at the top of the board here, where you got the absolute favorites obviously at the top there at the same highest prices. So interesting things going on at the top of the board there. I'm the same. Hideki just doesn't inspire me. He's been playing well, consistent, but nothing fantastic. It's just been solid, top 30s, leading the Memorial, pushes a matchup against Sam Burns at even par after being -10 on Saturday. How do you do that? Lose 10 strokes in the space of 27 holes. So get it together, Hideki, but he's moving in the right direction. Someone I'm really intrigued about is Sahith Theegala, because boy, oh boy, if he can he's like Cam Smith 2.0, essentially. The irons, the around the green play, the putting, all fiery. Driver is Lord help us at that RBC Canadian. I was expecting him to hit that driving iron all over the place. No, he was hitting driver on almost every hole he could, and it was gross. It was like he was one of the worst drivers in that field. Just cannot get it together. So maybe some flowing fairways can help him out.
So I think he was hitting driver all week because he was almost preparing for this week. I think he was I'm going to keep it in my hand because I'm going to get set up. I think this tournament means a lot to him. Let's not forget, where's Theegala from?
Yes.
Another one of those local boys who for sure knows this course. And not only that, it seems like this course fits what he does very well. Now, you're right. The one glaring concern with Sahith is off the tee. And it's one of those things where he either, if he starts getting wild, like we all have been praying for him to do, take out that driving iron, tighten it up. And if he does that, everything else about his game screams success on the score. So, and these wider fairways, you would think should help him. So I think there's a world where Sahith has a really good week here, especially because of that home court advantage, if you will. So I like this one.
Yeah, I do too. Obviously got a lot of him already. So if you don't, I would probably advise to. I think he's pretty much at the bottom of his price point right now. He hasn't been playing that well for a while. His price has gone down. I think we can expect him to kind of have a similar bounce back as what we were hoping from Cameron Young, who's kind of also been in the same boat, but off the tee. Just Cameron Young is just a crusher, but then putting. It's just a disease now. Him and Scotty just cannot get it together right now. It's ridiculous, even with Paul Tesori on the bag.
On that topic, real quick, do you think what we anticipate being confusing and difficult putting greens will help them or hurt them?
Do you think it's going to be tricky because they're big? Does big mean less break? Does big mean tricky?
Well, from what I'm reading, they have a lot of out of the ordinary contours, meaning not so straightforward flat putts. You're not going to see a lot of those. So you're going to have to read greens well. But my counterpoint to that is if it's super difficult, then it kind of neutralizes the bad guys. No one's making putts, and it doesn't matter if the bad guys don't make putts. So that's kind of my thought. Is it's kind of like if it's so difficult that no one's drilling putts, then they're all going to be kind of on a similar playing field.
Yeah, and Scotty is so known to just hit it inside of a breakless range, like inside of 2 feet kind of thing. So it is interesting. I don't know. If it's going to get into the teens, they're going to be making putts. That's the only way I think that happens. So I don't know, Joel. It's so interesting. We don't know which way this course is going to go. It's going to be really peculiar to start off the week and just watch it unfold. I am just, unfortunately, a victim of Cam Young again, just being way too low price to get rid of him right now. So I'm just kind of rostering him in my B squads, kind of as my captain, just waiting for that upside week to happen with a bunch of randos. So he's kind of there for me. Sam Burns isn't really inspiring me going into a major. I want to elite Wyndham Clark, by the way, with a bunch of Nate Lashley, Ches Reavie, and MJ Duffy as my 3 elites. In a tier pack.
That's a strong one. That's a good card.
I had Andrew Novak as my other rare and another guy. So it was a really impressive week for me. And I missed a legendary by 7 spots, dude. It was I almost got a legendary card, but I got a Wyndham Clark elite. So I'm kind of figuring out if I want to sell him this week or just because I don't have any other elites to play with him. So I'm going to have to go buy more or just get rid of him and just get that cash in the bank account kind of thing as like a prize.
I had one legendary card I won early in the year, and it's Joel Donovan. And obviously he's not playing well at all.
No.
And at the beginning of the year, I was like, let me just try and sell him. And no one's buying him. I've had him as the lowest priced option. No one's buying him. And I can't play him because I only have one. So I can't use him. And I don't want to buy another card to pair with him because he's not that good. It's not going to win anyway. So I'm just kind of like stuck in like I have this Joel Donovan legendary card.
Oh my God. That's brutal, Joel. I'm so sorry to hear that. And it's so funny because his rare price has skyrocketed because they've changed that contest. If only there was for legendaries, Joel Damon as well. That would have been perfect for you.
Yeah.
That's what you get for being an elitist. No, I'm joking. No, I hope you get rid of him. Hopefully he plays well, man. This kind of course suits his game too. I don't know. Who the heck knows what he can get up to. So someone I do want to mention before we get moving on down here to a few other random guys before we get out is Justin Thomas. And not for the fact that he's going to play well this week, but the fact that he's playing so shit that he's had to sign up for the Rocket Mortgage Classic for like probably the first time in his life. The guy is just like living with the plebs right now. JT with his jets and everything's going to be showing up to the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit. So it provides an interesting situation where he's going to be one of the elite names in the field, although he may not even be the most likely to win. His still odds are going to be pretty good to win. So you could find JT's price going up at the Rocket Mortgage Classic because he's going to be one of the big names of few in that week's event. So that's kind of just my theory there with JT for the meantime. Thoughts?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and especially this price has really come down.
$36, dude. Yeah.
And I think at worst case, I don't love JT obviously right now, but at worst case, I think you're right. His price is going to come up for the Rocket Mortgage because he's going to be one of the better golfers in that field. And so I think you're safe that like even if you buy him at 36 and for some weird reason it doesn't go up, I think you're safe to just play him. At the Rocket Mortgage will be a good play. But I think that you'd be pretty safe in making at least a couple bucks on him for the Rocket Mortgage.
Yeah. It's $36, right? It's not like you're spending $100 on a card or anything like that. It's a very affordable price compared to like, it's the same as Corey Connors and Tommy Fleetwood and Adam Scott. It's like getting Justin Thomas, if he just figures his stuff out and turns it around, that card could easily start cruising back towards 80, so very unlikely the way he's been playing. But
right? That's good profit just for a week's worth of holding a card. So I think it's worth it. Even if it's just for a short term, like quick buck, you probably make something off it.
Yeah. And even if you don't buy him now and wait for the post-major dump in price and just go and grab him next week at the Travelers at probably 33, whatever the hell it goes, depends how he plays this week. If he plays well, we could start seeing people jumping on him to get him before the Rocket Mortgage. So it's an interesting thing. It's kind of like a free square this week in a long-term play. In his roster him alongside my Cam Youngs and guys like that. So we'll see how that goes. But I thought that was an interesting mention because I do think there's an angle there on the long, like the 3-week run there. So any guys you want to bring up here in this middle range here, Joel? I've got some guys in pink, but feel free to offer me some chicken or beef options later in the flight here. I'm getting hungry.
So I'm going to give you a quick chicken or beef. I'm going to preface it with, I like both guys. I do like one better, but I like both of them. Chicken or beef, Adam Scott or Harris English?
Ooh. Ooh, Adam Scott or Harry H. Harry E. I kind of just like what Adam Scott can get up to this week. I know Harris English is moving in the right direction. He's really been playing some good golf, dude. But also Adam Scott has also been, and I think he hits his drivers so far. I think he can gain exorbitant amount of strokes this year at this Open. I think he's going to be booming that thing down there. And then his irons have kind of showed up a little bit lately, haven't they? And he's a good putter. So flip, that's a tough one, but I'm going to go with Scotty, I think, especially with Harris English's price being $24.99 because he's one of the other four guys that you need to roster to get that $75 discount. So if you had a Harris English, it would be ideal to sell him right now because you're making like $20 on that card. But as an elite person, I'd probably still go with Adam Scott.
I agree with you. I pick Adam Scott between you, but I also like Harris English a lot this week as someone who I think could be a sneaky play. I think this course and the U.S. Open setup of, he's really good at avoiding those blow-ups, and he might not be the best birdie maker, but I think he's going to be pretty consistent. All right, I got one more chicken or beef for you. Shane Lowry and Fleetwood.
I am going to go with Shane Lowry because of Tommy. Man, I don't know how Tommy's going to bounce. Like, does he bounce back this week after just a devastating L? Just couldn't wax it. Couldn't put the nail in the coffin last week in the playoff. That par 5, just not having the right club off the tee, whatever the hell the problem was, he just couldn't get it done. And then I faded Shane Lowry, got all my money on him. Faded him in matchups, and this week I'm going to pounce back on him. I think the ball striking's still there. We're not going to get to minus 17, and I don't need Shane Lowry to get to minus 17. I need Shane Lowry to get to minus 9. And although he couldn't even do that last week, I think this kind of course allows him to do that.
I think if you watched it on TV, Fleetwood looked shook when that was on. Like, he didn't look in his right mental state. He looked like, and I felt like I'm sure it was really challenging in that crowd. Everyone's playing. I'm sure that was hard. But to me, just looking at it felt more of like I need to get over this bridge and win a PGA tournament. And I thought he was holding that burden. And I think that on top of the pressure of the crowd, everyone rooting against him, really kind of, he just didn't play. And he was playing well all week, even all day, until when all the cameras got on him. And at the very end, he just kind of fell apart.
The 18th hole, just flared that iron out right, flared it out again in the layup. Just a disaster. That par 5 was playing so easy. He just needed to make birdie and win the tournament. And he went into 4 playoff holes. So couldn't quite get it done. I don't know. I thought he was going to turn into the next Victor Hovland and win in Canada and then still not have a U.S. soil victory yet kind of thing, because it felt like that was going that way. He got all the European Tour wins, one in South Africa, goes to Canada, loses in the playoff. He could have basically won that thing too. So I don't know. Who would you pick between the two? Do you think Shane's going to be in better spirits than Tommy?
Listen, I think if it wasn't for the fashion of how last week went, I would have picked Fleetwood. I actually, before last week, liked Fleetwood for this week. I was like, I want to play Fleetwood. But after watching last week play out, I just can't think he's going to be super sharp mentally. I just feel like there's got to be some hangover to that. So I'm still coming off of Fleetwood this week.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary situation for him because he could blow up or he could land up just saying, you know what, screw it. I don't see him winning a US Open though. I don't see him winning one of these big boy events. It's going to have to be like a Canadian Open or something for his first win. Also, famous last words. You never know. So, Eric Cole or chicken or beef? Yeah, Eric Cole or Russell Henley.
This is a good one because I feel like it's like the new and up and coming guy versus like the more established. You know what Henley is every week. I don't love either. If I had to pick one, I'd go with Henley.
Henley, interesting. Yeah, I don't know, dude. Eric Cole's kind of this trajectory plus strokes gain. He's like moving in a very nice direction. If you filter this by strokes gain plus improvement over the last little while, he's sitting right here in like 10th spot. So it's a really interesting situation for him. He's aspiring, I think he's a good investment versus Russell Henley, kind of maybe not necessarily having that upside in price, where Eric Cole's price could be like a Wyndham Clark situation.
You're right. I was going to give him an unfair assessment, but I actually looked and it wasn't true. I was going to say he tends to play up into weaker tournaments where he looks better against, but it's not necessarily true. He's got some pretty good finishes in the big tournament. He had 15th at the PGA, 24th at Memorial. I mean, those are legit fields, so I can't really say.
Yeah, dude, he's a baller, man. He's coming through. I think he's a little underdog, under the radar kind of guy. It'll be interesting to see what he can get up to. So, yeah, I feel like that's pretty much outside of Seamus Power and Taylor Moore. I'm always going to mention those two. I feel like they've got some opportunities.
The last guy here I'll mention that low that I like is Denny McCarthy. I like Denny because of two things. I think he'll be good at avoiding the rough. I think he'll keep it in play. And I think Denny can get one of those weeks on a difficult greens where he can make a lot of putts. And if you do those two things, you probably will find success. So, obviously, if you're doing an optimal rainmaker lineup, Denny will be nowhere near it. But if you're looking for a value player, someone different to go for, I think Denny's okay down in this range.
Yeah, and we've seen him show up, I think, at the US Open last year. He had a T10. So that was nice from him there too. And then I guess on the way out, we can also just mention Keegan Bradley. He's always just pretty solid in big tournaments. So he's an interesting play. I mean, whatever, we're kind of splitting hairs at the bottom here. Let's talk about some future flights, Joel. Some guys that are not in the field that potentially can pose a benefit for us for when we get into the Rocket Mortgage Classic against Justin Thomas and the John Deere Classic coming up here, which I will be attending. Have you got any guys in mind that you kind of want to take a peek at? We kind of scooted here by the price. Benny On is the highest price guy not playing in the field at $12. What are you feeling at the top of the board?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now that's popping to me is just the price of. I think Seabez, his price really got adjusted here. He's come down. Even look at the last. He was 15 just at the Memorial, and now he didn't play last week. He went to 10. Now he's down to 9. So I don't know why not playing would have him drop. I think Seabez is playing really well. I expect him to have good results in the upcoming week. So I like him there. I also love the way Mark Hubbard is playing.
Yes, dude.
And for another, pretty affordable option, I think Mark Hubbard is a guy that the way he's playing, the way he's striking his irons, is consistent. I expect him to have some more good results this year.
Yeah, and it's the same. They like identical people, except Seabez is a better putter. Yeah. Where Seabez is not necessarily hitting. Mark Hubbard's hitting his irons better than Justin Rose, and Justin Rose is like 8th in the field this week in approach, so he's out there just balling over the last 24 rounds. Mark Hubbard is, and he actually showed up at the top of the leaderboard for the first time. Just couldn't sink a few putts. It was one of those days where a few putts dropped and he was right in the mix, because I had a freaking Mark Hubbard outright. So I was really hoping he would come through there, but he didn't. But the iron play is just so freaking good, Joel. And the same with Bezzy and Aaron Rai. These two, like Bezzy has gone down to $9. He's one of the best iron players in the world right now. He's going to guarantee you a top 40 pretty much every single time he goes. And then he's going to be playing we saw him play, he's most likely playing at the John Deere, where he finished, I think, 2nd last year. So he's going to be doing his thing, and he's sitting 92nd in the FedEx Cup points, where he's going to be playing in these alternate, like not main event, not elevated event fields. He has to. And I think his irons are too good for him not to have top 5, top 10 finishes in those fields. So once those fields roll around, I think Bezzy's a great play. Mark Hubbard's a great play. Steven Yeager, Brandon Wu as well. Brandon Wu's one of these guys that in weaker fields, he did it again last week. I think he had another top 10. Just balls out in these weaker fields. I'm glad he's not in the US Open, because I don't think he'd play well anyway, But ideally, he plays in it and plays bad and drops his price even more. But I think he's a great option to go forward there. And then Ches Reavie, just doing random stuff. Like, the guy's just playing some great stuff. He shot a 28 on the back 9. A 28. It's the lowest 9-hole score on the PGA Tour in like forever.
He's been playing well. Not just he was good. He was great Sunday, but he's been good over the last couple of weeks. So again, Ches Reavie is never going to be a tier A, B, or C golfer. But if you're looking for a tier D golfer, that's some upside. I think Ches is a guy that you can look to.
Yeah, because what we've got the Travelers after this, the Rocket Mortgage, John Deere. Then we got the trip to Europe for the Genesis and Scottish. But then there's the Barbasol, which is at the same time as the Open. All of these guys are going to probably be playing in that. And then you got the Barracuda, which I guess the Barbasol is the same time as the Scottish and the Barracuda the same time as the Open. So you're going to have 2 events of utilization from those guys, then the 3M and then the Wyndham. So like those are 4 kind of tournaments that all these guys in the 70s, 90s are going to be playing in. So you're going to get a massive run out of them and then potentially some postseason stuff if they don't quite crack the 70 there. So I love Ches. Joseph Bramlett, dude. Also, he's playing some great golf. Love what he's been up to. And Andrew Novak as well. Andrew Novak's cut-making streak on the PGA Tour is like nuts for what his price is in DFS usually. And then he finally had a bit of a top tier. He was flirting with the lead on Sunday, Andrew Novak.
He was right in it. He was right all week. He played good golf all week. If you guys watched, I drafted him on the DraftCast, so I loved Andrew Novak last week. And I should congratulate you because you beat me, even though it was very close. I think you beat me by a couple points, but we both had great weeks. But Novak was one guy I was on, and you're right. His game is just trending in the right direction. The last guy down here, he was on the page a minute. We may have just scrolled by him. That I do want to mention, who also almost won the tournament last week, Aaron Rai.
Yep.
Aaron Rai played great. His one concern with him is putting. Not a great putter, but teeing green, he was unbelievable last week. And he's been playing pretty well over the last month or so.
Yeah. Ever since he boned me out of that Bezzy Charles Schwab top 20, I've not touched him at all. And I think we're going to have to go back there because he's just playing too good a golf. And then Nate Lashley's the last guy I want to talk about. Just playing great golf. He was right in the mix as well last week, doing his thing. Super cheap. He's $4.50. These guys at the Barbasol, these guys at the John Deere Classic, it all suits their games. They're not these massive tracks that these guys aren't going to be able to conquer. So some interesting names, some interesting strategies. We'll see how it goes going forward. It's going to be a fun week, Joel. It's going to be a fun week. Who's your pick to win this week?
Putting my feet to the fire. All right, as of right now, my pick is Max Homa.
Wow.
I'm hesitant. As you can tell, I really like Max this week. I just think a lot of things are pointing that this is his week to get it done. So I really love it. One thing I will admittedly say I'm probably overweighting is guys from this area who probably have experience seeing this course. But I think it's going to be I'm reading there's some similarities to Augusta in that, it's just tricky. And I think guys who have seen it before are going to have an edge.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, they're going to have the crowd behind them too. That makes a big difference. We saw it with Tommy. You never know. Maybe Tommy played in England. Maybe that's why he wins, So I don't know. I got it all with Cam. I just think he's my boy. Whatever. I only get to bet him only like 3 times a year because I bet him at Augusta. I didn't bet him at Oak Hill. I knew. I'm a homer for Cam, but I never bet him at Oak Hill because I just knew that wasn't the course for him. This week, there's an avenue. There's a path to victory for the guy, and 32-1 is also a number that's fair. It's not like a ridiculous number. But if I were to pick someone that's going to just win this thing, I think I'm going to bet Victor Hovland as well. I just think he's going to do it. He's been trending, man. Trending too hard. He's going to win this thing, and if you're not on him, you're going to ask, how did I miss this? We've seen what he's done the last 3 majors. Why? So we'll see. I don't know.
Now, let me ask you one more question because I think it's valuable for the week of gambling. Of the players, and there's a few of them that do not have Rainmakers cards, Liv, Spieth, what have you, who's your pick?
I mean, Brooks is – how can you not Brooks, man? The guy's just bulletproof when it comes to majors. But I've got Justin Rose to win it this week.
I like Rose a lot. I think one interesting thing I want to highlight about this week, for Rainmakers especially, there's a lot of guys that I like this week from a DFS perspective, from an outright whatever perspective, that just aren't available. in Rainmakers, a
Yeah.
lot of them. So what my lineups look like in Rainmakers is going to look way different than what I'm doing elsewhere, just because I can't play Fowler, I can't play Rose, I can't play Speed, right? And like, those are the guys that I like. So it should be interesting.
It's going to be so interesting. Maybe we get a situation like where we had at Augusta, where John Rahm finished first. We had 4 live guys or non-rainmakers, and then the next guy only getting like 6th place points, which was really helpful for me. Hopefully that happens again, which means we would be in the good position to cash, Joel. So let's get some cash out there. Let's kick some ass in these Rainmaker contests. Let's get our boys firing. Let's see how it goes out at LAX. This has been the Rainmaker Runway. Please go check out rotorball.com. Use code MANIAC 10% off for all your needs over there. And catch me tomorrow night at 7 Eastern for my solo pod. I'll be doing all my bets, all of the DFS stuff, all that jazz. So also don't miss the draft cast. That's at 9 Eastern on Win Daily Sports channel on YouTube. It was awesome. I was on there last week. It was a hoot. Turns out I kicked Joel's butt, which is always a great thing because he was on a 3-win streak. So I'm glad I came in there and took care of business. So we'll catch you guys next week for the Travelers Championship, and stay classy.